All right, I guess yeah, we can start off with this. So, thank you everyone. Good evening, and thanks to everyone for joining this session with us today. My name is Salman Syed Mohammed, and it's a great pleasure to co-host this session with my colleague. Incidentally, this happens to be my first session as a member and as a speaker, as a co-speaker. So without further delay, I'll just give a small brief introduction about myself. I work as a CRM consultant at DXC Technology. I work in the functional space. I've been here for the past 5 years at DXC. And in the past, I've worked on other CRM SaaS like the Maximizer CRM, Pivotal CRM, but these days it's just Dynamics 365 CE. So with that, I'm handing over the baton to Linn. Linn, over to you, buddy.
Hi everyone, my name is Linn, and I'm Microsoft Business Application MVP. I'm currently working as a senior technical consultant in DXC Technology in New Zealand, based in Wellington. I started off as my career as a Dynamics 365 Microsoft CRM 4.0 developer back in 2009, and now all the way to Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. So yeah, the next agenda, someone will start with his
Sure.
sessions.
Yeah. So sorry, my area I would be talking about my D365 journey from a timeline perspective, and also a bit about my low code world and what are the factors that led me to go beyond low code. And after that, be discussing more about the benefits of have been exposed to the two worlds, and also the challenges that I've faced and I'm still facing. So yeah, over to you, Linn.
And for me, I also explain a bit about my developer background and how I started using the low code no code platform and choosing the right tool for the job. And in terms of embracing the local no code platform, what are the benefits, and we'll conclude with some bonus podcast recommendation for both functional and technical people. Okay, someone. Yep.
Thanks, Lynn. Thank you. So, yeah, a bit about my D365 journey. I started off as a junior developer back in 2005, 2006. And in a span of 2 years, I saw myself switching role as a functional consultant, uh, primarily due to the situation back in the company that I worked for, where they wanted to actually have a resource that could run workshops and aid in the design with the developers. So uh, there was a need, and they believed that I was expendable. So they felt that I would be the ideal candidate to do the role switching. I did indeed. This did have a profound effect on me in terms of the learning curve in regards to the technical aspects, where the learning curve got longer for me because every now and then, there was this switching of roles that made it a bit difficult for me to pursue and have my focus. But then again, it is life is what it is, and 5 years from there, I decided to have a break. Went pursued my higher studies, and then, although the original plan was to actually go back into the CRM space, there was something in me that actually, some sort of a brainwave that encouraged me to try out something different, something new, and that's when I completely ejected out of the Microsoft Dynamics bandwagon, and I completely worked on a completely different software applications, which would more to do with the field mobility computing, address mapping, and spatial technology as such. But in saying so, I still kept tabs with Microsoft Dynamics, the world of Microsoft Dynamics. In fact, I was involved in some minor customization, very trivial ones, uh, with my previous employer. So that did give me an opportunity to not lose that touch with Microsoft Dynamics. And come 2015, I got a chance, a red glimpse into what's in store for Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics 2015, and that's when I realized that there's a big revamp, sorry, that was coming up with Microsoft Dynamics in the world of Microsoft Dynamics, and that made me felt like, yes, I think now is the time that I need to do that switch. So that's when I decided that I would go back to my roots. And basically, my joining into DXE as a functional consultant was more of a homecoming for me because it was something that I enjoyed doing years back. So with my arrival, I started. There was a lot of catch up for me to do because a lot of things have changed from 2011 to 2015. One thing was a business rule. I never saw that. So apparently the business rules concept was introduced somewhere in 2013, I believe. And there was a lot of catch up for me. And in fact, that's something that I enjoyed because this was CRM had, since it was the first application that I ever got exposed to. And that eventually had, I had a penchant or kind of interest in CRM as such. And finally, here I am, still working as a functional consultant, but at times I tend to be a part-time technical as well. So in regards to I know everyone has got a window like this. Well, this is the view from my low-code window, where I had the opportunity to work with a lot of no-code applications, no-code platforms, business rules, classic workflows, be it a runtime or be it a background workflow. These were pretty good components because there are situations where you don't need to use a JavaScript every now and then for certain basic tasks, like you wanna render the field visibility, or you want to conditionally set the mandatory rule for a field, or you want to set the value. So these are some of the basic stuff could actually be handled by a business rule, and it was quite easy to build and deploy when compared to the client-side scripts like JavaScripts and all. Then came with the advent of Power Platform. That's where I got exposed to a lot of Power, low-code platforms like the Power Apps, not exactly Power BI, but Power Automate to be precise. And I've really enjoyed working with the low-code platform because here I wouldn't say you can come from a non-programming background and you can still work on it, but if you had the programming background, that helps you to enhance or make helps you to build an ideal Power Automate application as such, ideal Power Automate flow. So that's one thing that I was exposed to. And also, I know the next thing that I'm going to bring up is a touchy subject because not many people would agree that custom SSRS reports is low code. But to me, it felt more like it is still a drag and drop. But yes, there were components where there are areas where you had to look at it from a pro code perspective. So in the beginning, as a CRM consultant working in a functional space, what I've seen is that, and I have come across many instances where, I may have done justice to documenting a process, by understanding what the business wants, and a set document or a task assigned to the developers. But then I realized there were so many instances that I faced in the beginning where the developers would actually come back to me saying, they would be stating that, okay, so you talked about this scenario, so how about this? There are, certain limitations with the approach that you have mentioned. And that led me to a lot of back and forth comms with the business. And I was more like a medium between the business and the developers. And that's when I realized that, what if I understand the world of developers more, and that could actually help me to even understand or even provide a better solution to the business. So I could use my functional cap in terms of understanding what the business wants, and at the same time, when it comes to giving recommendations, I could don the technical cap, where I could look at from a technical view, technical aspect. I could see, what's possible, what's not possible, what are the limitations, and we could actually give these recommendations to the business. So this was something that was more like a desire for me. I thought, okay, there's something that I need to, maybe I should enhance, because for me, I always consider that what you learn is the limit for today, but not the limit for tomorrow. And tomorrow, it's going to be completely different, and we need to constantly adapt, evolve ourselves to that pace of technology that's out there. So hence the desire to go beyond low code in me happened. And the most contributing factor to why I wanted to go beyond was the first thing, which, to be honest, is passion. Because I always, right from the very beginning, I always wanted to know the working, the actual technical parts of components of how things work. And I was always of the belief that what you learn today is only for today, but not for tomorrow. So I wanted to always go beyond the knowledge that I have already acquired, so that it helps me to embrace the new concepts, adapt to the new changes, bring up new ideas. And that was a very very, I would say, a very contributing factor. And basically, you can take it like this: like, let's say the low code world is a fenced property, and I'm inside it. And Linn happens to be my neighbor at the other side. And every now and then, not the fact that I'm a very nosy neighbor. It's just that I would just peek over to the other side. I can see he's having the life of his time. He's having fun with his stuffs, and there is that the desire in me, like, okay, this guy's having a good time. He's enjoying. He's having fun with whatever stuff he's got. Why can't I be like that? And it's that kind of thing that actually set me into this. That actually set me off to go more pro code and to embrace a little bit of that pro code gradually. And another thing that comes hand in hand with this is visibility. What I've seen, and that's a thing that I always felt jealous of developers, is the fact that they have got this vantage point where they can view the different components and different parts, and they have this better understanding of how things interact. So having that holistic view was something that I always wanted as well. You can say that I was more greedy, but yeah, this is. But I couldn't hold myself back, and yeah, I wanted to go beyond what I was into, and that basically would I consider that more like a domino effect, because next comes in with this, when you have the passion, when you gain that visibility, then you're able to understand the complex requirements better. So if there is complex scenarios being explained during workshops, we don't need to be concerned about. We wouldn't be concerned about how we are going to come up with a solution, but it comes in, it just comes out of you gradually when you listen to what the business wants, you understand what they want, and then the rest of them just fall in place where you can explain, and you can like when you have that exposure from a technical aspects, you can give them better ideas and better. You can actually set realistic solutions or workarounds, basically, and that again this is something that I felt personally when I went through that change, is the fact that reinforcement of an ideal solution. So it's every now today I might give I might come up with a solution. Tomorrow I might feel like when I go through different articles or I do my own exploration, I would actually come to a stage where I would feel, oh, with this new approach, yeah, I feel maybe we could, in the solution that I suggested before, when I get the next opportunity, I could actually recommend, a much better solution. So this is one thing. And last but not least, it's about the confidence that you get, because when you have that good visibility, and when you have that the kind of technical know-how, it makes it easier for you to uh, gain that kind of there is what I felt what I've seen is there is a kind of a mutual a trust that you can gain from the business or from the end user, from your clients, where they feel comfortable when they interact with you, and when they talk about the business cases, and they talk about the scenarios, and when we give them the approaches, the potential approach, like, this is what you could do for the specific scenarios that you have stated out, and that gives them the a comfort level, that increases their comfort level, and it helps us to gain their trust as well, and it makes it easier for us to push in more ideas in and around. So with that, the benefits of being hybrid, I would say, the benefits of being exposed to the two worlds, I would say involvement. Functional consultants can now then have a deeper involvement in building some of the front end UI. The reason why I stated it was because when I started off as a functional consultant, I have come across scenarios where there was a need to build a JavaScript, and because of time constraints, I would hold back from that, or I had to come up with a workaround. But now, since I've been exposed to those areas, I'm in a situation where I can handle those tasks by myself, rather than relying on a developer or trying to annoy them with all those small tasks as such. And another thing is, it helps us being an ideal team player, because what happens now is, when there's a situation where developers are overhauled with a lot of work and they're literally under the pump, this is where we can, as a functional consultant, I can actually go in, take up responsibility over certain development tasks, like a small JavaScript builds and all those, and thus alleviate that burden from the developers, so that the developers can now focus on the core development work areas, like the backend integrations, or even more. They could focus their attention to more pressing matters, as of more complex plugins, etc. Another thing is influence of ideas. So now that since we explore more and more, it's a second nature for us to read online articles, to read more, research more, to participate in forums, and also maintain that interaction with developers, be it in a casual interaction, or be it a project-related interaction. These, in a way, they influence the way we think, the way we think about certain concepts, the way we code, and it actually helps us, even in our future projects, or even in regards to our outlook as such, as how we look at a code, how efficiently can I build a code, etc. Another thing is quick turnaround. So when I say quick turnaround, it's more about our ability to uh, give recommendations or workarounds, or give them a solution on the fly. One of the examples that I can give is something like, um, in a scenario where, let's say, the business comes to you and says that, we have a scenario where, when we create a new account, we give a classification for that account. And well, for the first time, when they create an account, it's fine. They can classify, they can put it as a bronze or a silver or gold customer. But later on in future, when they want to change it, they want a tracker or a classification change reason to come up, and they want the business to actually put in the reason why they want to change that classification. And for a thing like this, out of the box, you can't go with a business rule or a workflow. It's obviously a JavaScript that's going to work for this scenario. And for that to get into, for those ideas and for that solution to come into your mind, then you had to be exposed to these areas, these technical areas, and that's when it gives you that advantage, and you can give them you could give them suggestions as to, well, this can be possible, where we can rely on a JavaScript to achieve what you wanted. And how we do it, again, that comes in gradually. With this, yeah, there were a lot of challenges that I faced. One absolute obvious challenge is the learning curve, which is a very which is something that something that we cannot ignore. And I don't know, there's no way that I can completely ignore this or bypass this. There's always the investment in time on learning and how we make the right move. And but again, I've considered, every time I had my faults, I had my ups and downs throughout my journey. But what mattered to me the most is how we pick up, how we learn from where we fell, and how to be careful next time. So in terms of my venture into the pro code areas, the learning curve was pretty long for me. And but then again, I had the honor of, I had great friends around me, great developers, Linn, for example. So when I had these people around, then it makes it easier for us. But in no way the learning curve goes short. It's still long, but it helps us to achieve uh, where we wanted to move into. Another thing is the ethical compass. So this is something that I have, I've experienced recently, because my previous projects, I was more like a part-time technical resource. I was used as a technical resource in the previous two projects, and then the current project that I'm with Linn, I'm more a functional now. So there is this. I felt this identity crisis that crept into me, the sort of a dilemma as to where you actually belong. And this usually there is you get into this conflicts when you try to assign certain tasks, so you feel like, oh, this is something that I could do it, but in the end you had to look at what are your responsibilities and what are the things that you have in your plate, and you had to make that right decision. So there was a struggle that I faced when it came to that. Linn would know that very well, because there were instances where actually I wanted to do the stuff and I thought, okay, and I had to make the right call and say, yeah, it's better. Yeah, I'll leave it to the pros. So with that, yeah, over to you, Linn. The other way around.
Yeah, sure. It's the other way around. It's basically my slides are quite similar to what someone says display, but it's more around the as a someone who started as a developer and getting into more low code, no code platforms and embrace this idea of no, not just relying on the pro code tools. For me, as I mentioned in my introduction, I started as the developer for Dynamics 36 CRM 4.0. And I vividly remember that the very first assignment at my intern job in that Dynamics company was implementing the SSRS reports. And then they just started assigning some JavaScript snippets, the validations on the form and stuff. And over time, I just working in the developing plugins and custom workflow assemblies and stuff. And we also have not just JavaScript plugins and all these things. We used to have this um, extend the Microsoft CRM with the ESP.NET pages, and we just embed it into the application to achieve some things that we can achieve out of the box in these days. So, and we also had a lot of unsupported customizations in back in CRM4 because the platform has a very limited functionality, and we're also trying to achieve when we used to call it XRM, which is actually the based in CRM, but we just use it as a development tool to build the another application system for the users. And when we look at when I look at back in those days, we had like more percentage of the development tasks back in the days comparing to the projects nowadays. And there now we have more functionalities that we can achieve out of the box, and we have all these local no-code tools that we can achieve, and we can build more things and achieve more without relying on the development. And but with the evolution of local development platform doesn't mean that there are less career opportunities or the professional developers. There are a lot of rooms for developers, and you know, we're by empowering the citizen developers or local no-code tools, and all these pro devs can focus on things that matters, or only the things that can be achieved only with the development, such as like writing developing the PCF controls or using Azure functions as Linn mentions. And also, even the pro devs, you can also adapt this local no-code tools and implement the things faster. And while doing these developments, so I'm exposed to more of these local no-code components. And the very first one that I experienced, I started using is it's pretty much simple. It's classic workflow. We all have that. Start with that CRM the old days. It comes with CRM workflows. We just don't write plugin for everything. We try to achieve something with the classic workflow, and only then we hit the limits and we cannot achieve something with the classic workflow. Then we started building custom workflows, assemblies, or plugins. But then we have the new functionality such as business rules that came. In that way, we don't have to write JavaScript for very small functionalities like showing hiding fields and just disable, enable all these small little validations. We can just use the business rules without writing a JavaScript. But again, it is just depends on the scenario and how you're trying to achieve. We're not going to you have to have a principle of how we are going to when we are going to use the business rule, when we are going to use JavaScript. For example, if you try to mix and match business rules, there will be a lot of overhead for troubleshooting. If you
Mm,
have any issue or looking for a dependency, trying to remove a field, you need to check in both business rules as well as JavaScript. In that
We did
way,
go through this. We did go through this, Lynn, right?
yeah, yeah,
A week back.
it was hilarious. It was a headache. Like, we can't find how I can't find it in JavaScript. Like
Yeah, and
where
then
is that?
yeah, and then you said, it's okay. Let's put all of them into the JavaScript. Uh, like we found out there were some business rules that uh, cross paths with the JavaScript that we just put in, and then we thought, oh, okay, now let's not let's not use the
Yeah,
business rule for this because it's going to confuse the hell out of people. So we thought, okay, let's put everything into this JavaScript. So yeah, that's a very good
yeah,
very
indeed.
scenario.
Yeah, that's a really good example of no. You just don't have a it's coming from the experience. No, at first you wouldn't know how it's gonna be, and then over time you define your principle around when to use what to. And last more than a year ago, I started writing Power Automate just because I saw when I create a workflow and say, oh, there's a warning from Microsoft. Is you might want to create a flow instead of Power Automate. That's what Microsoft recommends. Okay, so let's try it. No, how hard can it be? And then I thought, like, I just started as the mindset of no, building classic workflows, and it was similar yet so different. So when I started my first flow in Power Automate, I had a really love-hate relationship with it, and I was like, what the flow? Like how like why it's not working? No, and over time I overcome that fear of. For automate, and now I'm embracing, I would say I'm embracing more, and statistically saying the number of plugins, async plugins that I developed during the past years is less than 10% of what I did in the year before. So no, nowadays just any most of the server side logics, I try to achieve it with the Power Automate first, and only then it is no way possible, like synchronous things, and then I just resort to plugins.
Yeah, I do. I'm fully with you on this, Lynn, with the love-hate relationship with Power Automate.
Yeah.
Uh, I believe you would recall when the day when I came to you and I asked, Lynn, is there any way that we can, is there any way that we could, is there a shortcut way to populate the regarding fields? How
Oh,
we do the regarding
fluctuate.
fields? And I went to the extent of maybe I should use a JavaScript for this one because it's a client-side event, but probably I should use that. And but still, I had I stuck to the workflow. But oh boy, that was a long way for me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Indeed, it was. Some of those seem so simple, yet it's the platform limitation. It is so hard to achieve. That's uh, that's
And the
too
fact
bad.
that I had to do that, I had no other go. And the fact that I'm the laziest person, I think I can walk the Hall of Fame, the lazy person Hall of Fame easily. But I had to go through that pain, and yeah, it was fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
The laziest people are the best developers, so it's
is
a
yeah.
it?
compliment.
Then I'll be the first one to break that rule.
Yeah. So after Power Automate, I'm exposed to the Porous and Canvas apps, and also, my first experience was like horrible. I was, it is a different way of learning, different from how traditional development. So it was a big learning curve for me as well then. so those are the few things that I learned, embraced it over the years, and there are more things that like AI Builder and a lot more in the Microsoft Power Platform space. So since we have lots more, how what how are how are we choosing, like where do we go, low code, no code, or pro code tool, and and that's a saying that in all if you all you have is a hammer, then if then everything looks like a nail. So you just if you just know um, maybe like JavaScript, you just try to do everything in JavaScript, and there's actually not a solution. So that is the thing you try to find the right tool when it is good and when you should use the low codes, and one of the things is the challenges. You need to know what are the challenges with the local platform. Well, something like you know, configuring business rules, it can be sometimes a bit tedious and repeated. No, if you're going through the a lot of fields to hide and show at the same time, you have to create the 10 or 20 blocks of show hide fields where you can in the JavaScript it can be done pretty much
Yeah, exactly.
easier and faster.
Especially when you do that if else condition.
Yeah, you can just put a boolean flag value in the all these 10 fields. It's easier, and and also the sort of like when sometimes it's a limitation or when it's too hard to achieve, like hiding a section or a tab with a business rule, you need to hide all the fields inside of it, and in the JavaScript it's just one line of code. And no, and another thing is learning curve, as I mentioned in the Canvas app. It's learning curve of the proprietary local tool is it's sometimes you came from a pro dev background and it's you have a different expectation, and it's going to be sometimes a mismatch with the complex solutions. And so that is really important to understand the capability and the limitation of each functionality to choose the right tool for the job. So let's say, for example, we have the build something assessment or questionnaire form. We want to embed it in the user Dynamics 365, whether we are building a PCF tool or web resource, or we just build a Canvas app and embed it, or we can also use the Dynamics 365 customer voice and use it as embedded in the as a survey form. So the benefits of the embracing the low codes is first of all, it is a faster development. I admit, if I implement the same functionality in the plugin, and if I implement the same functionality in the Power Automate, I can complete it in the flow with way faster then. So it's just faster to test, and it's
Linn,
also
sometimes it's not like with regarding, right? Sometimes it's
yeah, that's why you need to know the capability, and no, you need to know the limitations. So it's faster most of the time. I would say, yeah, maybe I should put a asterisk at the end, like disclaimer most of the time. and and also there's because we should use low codes because is almost no technical debt. I say almost because even the local tools or platform can be deprecated. For example, if you're using the dialogue instead of the web resource to ask the user to see some questions, and your Dynamics 365 dialogues is deprecated and you need to replace it. So that is also even local tools has some technical debt, but I would say it's less than um, actual pro code. Just in case, if you write your logic in the business rules, any JavaScript client API changes, you won't have to worry about it. Microsoft will handle at the back end. And another thing is to empowering the non-technical people. You can share the responsibility with your non-technical colleagues, delegate some of the functionalities. Something like you can ask a functional consultant like, hey, someone, no, I'm busy with other development tools. Can you write this just in the business rules and validation? Or even the user administrator can debug the flows to see what's wrong. Otherwise, if something there's an error with my plugin, yeah, it just come to the developer. No one else can do the debug. And yeah, if someone that I implement, the developer that implement like Canvas app or the complex flow, those things can still be maintained by the other non-technical people. That's one benefit of the embracing the low codes. And yeah, that's the all about my journey and why I'm embracing low code and what are the benefits. And I concluded with some podcast recommendations for both pro code and local no code people. The first one is the very new podcast, Funky Tech, and it's more about the podcast by two people. Like Dick Luck is a very functional guy, and Mosen is a very technical guy, and they're talking about pretty much similar to this podcast, and they try to tackle a topic from the perspective of both functional and technical perspective. So it's really good. They're new in the podcast. They so far they only had like 4 episodes, and they're producing I think every 2 week. And for functional consultants or no code local people, we have the CI MVP podcast by Gus Gonzalez and the Art podcast by Lisa Crosby and Megan V. Walker, and the CM audio by Joe Lindstrom, Sean Tabor, Josh Stebinski, Matthew C. Anderson, and a lot of more people over there. And for technical people, you have this Exam Tukas podcast by Daryl Labar and Yunus Rap. And yeah, that's all. So we can unmute yourself, ask the questions, and we can have a chit chat and discuss about how you think, how you think about this thing.
So guys, I apologize because the chat is not available. So you just unmute yourself and just say something. I want to listen to Leon. Leon, I was listening to guys, to Muhammad, and I was thinking the most logical way to, like, this. I was always wondering how people with no technical background can design systems. So I found it very natural that someone wants to know in depth how systems work to be able to better understand and design a system.
So what's the question? Are you suggesting I'm not technical? Right?
I'm suggesting you're the only non-developer apparently on the call. So what do you think about all this no code and the code?
Well, I guess I'm also in the same boat as Leon's then, because it's just I'm actually a non-developer from a functional guy, but I've just recently I've ventured into the pro code areas.
But you mentioned you had this desire to learn in depth to better understand how systems work. There's I'm used by some people not having this desire. But Leon, I'm not talking about you. I'm in general.
Okay, so my network is acting twitchy, so I'm trying to improve it. Sorry, the network was twitchy. So what's the question?
What do you think about learning technologies in depth to better design systems?
Oh, 100%, 100%. So my background was originally coding, a long time ago, back when there wasn't C#. I learned C. There wasn't even pluses back when I learned coding. So that was my background. I did physics degree. I did first year computing as part of that, and then when I was doing the degree and started a PhD and I finished it. I was doing Fortran 90 and C coding to run physics simulations. So I've got a technical background in that sense. But in the dynamics world, as you're alluding to, Elena, I came at it from a functional consultant perspective. But to migrate from a functional consultant to an architect, you have to know how the plumbing works. You might not need to know how to write a plugin, but you need to know what triggers a plugin, what they're listening for, what their what their strengths and weaknesses are. Similar with JavaScript, you got to know what events are they triggering off, what's supported, what's not supported. You've got to know the plumbing, even if you can't do it yourself. And it's also handy if you're getting quotes from people as well, and they're trying to be creative in how long things will take. It's good to, hang on, couldn't we just do it this way? And they go, oh, yeah. So it's good from that perspective as well. So I think if a functional consultant wants to go to the next level in the sense of, in the sense of architecture, they have to get at least a little bit technical. And it's not hard, right? It's not hard. Even if you get the basic certifications, you sort of learn a bit about how that layer works.
I found this. I even have it. Like I'm having discussion with my partner, who's more like an architect, an enterprise architect, and recently doing lots of development. How the amazing thing about then you actually design something, then you actually start developing and find out that your design has nothing to do with reality, because it's a little bit, even you understand it on a high level, you still, if you come to implementation, you just see different picture, right? So sometimes it can be tricky. And even if you're a very smart person and have some high level understanding, sometimes, I think Mohammed, you mentioned it, that it's so there's some actual limitations then about, then you don't design this way because it's not going to work.
Yes, that's the thing. It's basically how we understand that. So that's where I was talk about. That's where I always felt like there was this need for me to at least go, not too deep pro code, but at least just get a little bit technical, understand how things work, because just like how Leon said, especially when you give estimates on like how long is it going to take. It helps us to give on the fly, at least pretty much, I wouldn't say a 70% or 60% realistic time frame, which is justifiable, rather than I've seen times where the functional consultants, like I've done that in the past, when I've given an estimate and when by the time I talk to a developer, it's like, oh, there's a whole new story. It becomes a 24 series, like you have got all the 24 episodes in there, so it's 9 seasons, so it's like pretty long. And that's a lesson that I've learned, and that's why I felt like, okay, yes, we need to know a little bit more technical. And the thing is, I enjoy it as well, because I kind of enjoy doing the tech, because it's very fascinating. It's very interesting to know or to learn how things work from a technical perspective, and how we can carry forward, how we can relay that information and win over customers in terms of making them understand why we want to go for this approach, why not the other approach. It's a tough game there, but it's something. It's all part of the show.
Yeah, and I was surprised, and you mentioned the same case, and Leon mentioned in our very first meetup about having things in the different places and not being able. Then Leon was an advocate for the pro coding in our first, which kind of changed. We changed places, and he was talking exactly about the same thing, about not being able to find, because you have pieces of no code and code everywhere, and sometimes they're doing the same or opposite things, and you're just trying to consolidate something, either to have more low code and or everything in JavaScript.
Oh, I had myself and Linn had many instances where we were scratching our heads just saying, oh, well, this JavaScript doesn't talk anything about the kind of behavior we're seeing in the form. And that's when, oh, hang on. All right, let's see whether there's a business rule. And there you go. There's a business rule.
Yeah. Now we have even more. Tay, so do you want to join our conversation? So you said you recently started doing more Power Automate, or it was a thing. How did you find? Is it a different mindset? Does it require a different, like?
Yeah, I guess so. Because I'm doing a bit of Power Automate, and it's a pretty massive flow because it does a lot of provisioning for teams and things like that. And I guess we kind of went in this direction because we had all those connectors that we can utilize quite quickly without having to build a boilerplate for a lot of the things. But then now I'm thinking, was this the right direction? Although it is actually quite nice that you can actually visualize it, and somebody who actually doesn't know, like maybe to that depth of code, to actually come in and be able to troubleshoot it and easily see where the actual process went. But then at the same time, I'm thinking there are certain things in Flow, it's just really frustrating.
Indeed.
It's so roundabout way of actually solving it that you think, I could just write a custom-made connector to this to quickly work out things and then bring it back, or something like that, you know?
That's what we do at the end, yeah.
And then now I'm thinking, oh, I wonder if this would have actually been better as just a PowerShell script or something like that, because you can do all of that too. So, I mean, there's a lot of options to actually go about it, but I guess it's like at the end of it, it's like the maintainability of it as well. And so I don't know. Yeah, so that's my experience. But at the end, it's just about like solving the problem with the, problem solving, and like try to use the most like righteous tool for that at that time in the moment, I guess, like what Salman was saying before. And so yeah. So
Yeah, that's nice. Guys, Kim, do you want to add something? Do you remember all your questions?
Less questions and more resonating.
Talk to us.
Please share that with us.
Going back to the first half, I've been told that it's hugely valuable to be able to speak both technical and business, that it's a rare skill. So I hear what you're saying in terms of wanting to be able to add more value by being able to talk both sides and understand more.
Yes, that's something that like it has been a proven case for me, where it had helped me in numerous situations, having that technical aspect, and it's quite easy to. That's where I talked about confidence, because it gives you the ability to convince the business as to what's possible, what's realistic.
Because you actually know what you're talking about, right? You're not just pretending.
Yes. Unlike before, Kim. In the beginnings, where I was more of a gas bag. So.
Yeah. And that's partly where, I mean, I didn't learn C, but I started out learning COBOL. So coming from a technical background, but although I can do the technical, I've always spoken more like a business person, like a non-techie person.
Lucky you. I was always speaking like a technical person.
Yeah, and then the other thing was, they've ended up kind of crossing one another. So that was being able to speak both sides in terms of the analysis, and I must have just carried on in the same vein. I said, understanding the tech to make better requirements, it resonated. I've been in both a team lead and an analyst role, but I've always tried to stay doing at least some code so that I can keep my hand in and keep understanding, because everything just moves so very quickly.
So true.
Yeah,
Yes.
especially
So
these
true.
days.
Yes.
So true, Kim. We can feel for you. Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing both of your experiences. I was
Thank
doing
you.
a lot of head nodding while you were speaking of, yeah, I've been there. I feel you. I get that.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank
sharing,
you.
guys. Johnny, do you want to add something to this conversation? So we're gonna wrap up soon. And did we lose him? He's muted. Are you muted?
Sometimes it happens
Can you
to
hear me?
me even.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
now
we
we can
can hear
hear
now.
you.
Yeah, so in developing like apps or working projects, I know one thing in the past we've relied on log files. So I'm still new to the Power Platform. Have you guys do you guys use log files? And if so, how does it come in place? Or is it more like, oh, if it breaks, we try to find out where that part is malfunctioning or not working properly?
I depends.
Yes.
Sometimes I can be proactive and I try to log it, and sometimes I just do it. You know, when something breaks, oh, okay, maybe next time I just want to know something, and then I try to log it. And when I log it, I usually the easiest way is to log in the Excel. I use the Power Automate Excel online and just add a row. That's the easiest way. Um, but then there are more efficient and enterprise level ways to do it. But for me, it's just a very basic one.
And what about error files? Do you have systems in place that generate error logs?
But look, we have a different, like Power Platform is different parts, like there's moving parts. For example, for Flow, you have the whole history, which is non-readable almost if you run too many flows and too many times. But we have like, we have some tools developed in the community, like John Lou developed his Flow Studio, which helps a lot, and we started recently using it. And so yeah, it's bits and pieces, and it's traces for plugins which we store. Yeah, we have in the system. You can go there and see what's happening. It's just not in one place.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, like for example, if you've got workflows or business workflows, for example, they're out of the box in Dynamics CRM. You have a place where you can actually go in and search what were the processes that had run previously and where it errored. But then again, it's all scattered everywhere, just like how Elena said. And with JavaScript, there's no way. It's just on the spot, it's pretty much
yeah.
on the fly.
Can I chip in?
Yeah,
Yeah,
triaging is it's a skill. Like it's yeah, well, it's go and find why it's not working thing. It's like a problem solving part. And yeah,
Oh, it was just yeah. So Johnny, if you want to do something like more centralized logging and stuff like that, you kind of do have to do a bit of coding to actually cater for that. So for what we currently have in our system is that we have a centralized logging in the application insight, pretty much, for capturing all logs from the flow and also from the plugins, also from JavaScript, because we're actually just logging against a one sort of like an API of sort, like that you call, which actually takes in all the trace and all the errors and all that stuff, and then chucks it all into application insight. So I think this is like one of the things I think one of the architecture series, the Power Platform 1 that just got released not too long ago, last month or something, or beginning of this month or something. The Power Automate section actually talks about this logging stuff. So I suggest if you want something more centralized like that, then you can actually go and have a look at that and see how that's implemented, and then maybe implement that across all your other side of things. So like if you got plugins or like, yeah, so things like that. But it is kind of still like you have to do a lot of work yourself in order to get it like that. But once it is in there, then you just use the whole Azure like App Insight, and you can see you can monitor it, you can get alerts and everything like that. So it's quite powerful. So
how
yeah.
long did it take you to set it up, like the whole system, the way you like it? How long did it take you guys to actually?
Well, it's just one Azure function actually for us.
Okay.
So we're calling pretty much one thing, but the thing is, it's just the payload that you actually get it right, and then you just push it in. So from different, like say from plugin, you send in whatever is relevant to that context, and then at the flow, like you usually would use something like scoping or something like that. So if in the case if you fail on a one scope, and then if you want to log it, then you can call a HTTP request from that particular flow to log it to the same Azure function. So it's not like multiple APIs that you call to actually log that. So
Understand.
you know what I mean, right? So, and same goes for JavaScript as well, because JavaScript also can just call a API which will log some things, So yeah.
I found there's some tools which are they just fail, like you don't have even any like I started working with Dataflow a lot, and sometimes Dataflow just fails. And I know they do lots of improvements in this area, but it just fails. It just there is no way to handle it anyhow.
Yeah, I
It's
think
just
Dataflow is
yeah.
hard at the
No,
moment.
they're amazing. I'm gonna just like this.
Oh,
No,
it's
they are
amazing,
awesome.
isn't it?
No,
Yeah.
they are awesome actually. But there are lots of like at the very beginning, so there are lots of improvements needs to happen. But yeah, logging is interesting. Like I like your approach. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's just, after this, I'm gonna do I'm gonna fish out some of the information.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the solution. I like the solution too. Yeah, it's interesting. How do you differentiate? Do you have the way to differentiate? It's all the deep dev talks now. How do you differentiate the business errors from the system errors? Because there's also, do you log system and business errors or just system errors?
Well, it's it's the errors that get triggered off from, say, in this case would be plugin. So if it's something like, if it's like Canvas app or something like that, there's an application inside that you can turn on for Canvas app, which can go to also the same application inside. Then you can actually do a, like the query against the logs and stuff. So the business side of things, if it fails on some of the validations on the Power App side of things, you can't log that, right? So it is only things that you kind of custom built on top that you want to log stuff to. All the other stuff you probably want to go and download the log when the error happens. I don't know. Yeah.
If you have like very complex system, like you have different bits and pieces, that lots of things can go wrong, and sometimes to handle all those things, it's not an easy task.
So I think like if you actually put all your logs into one place, then you can actually, if you've got cross border sort of kind of functionality, say for example you triggered something from like the plugin, and then you call them like Azure function, and then that Azure function calls something else, then one application log, like capturing all of that, so that you can actually see in the timeline which application they actually failed on. So like so you sort of can keep sort of you can see it in one place if you have implemented in that kind of way. But yeah, it's
interesting topic.
Yeah, I think it's very ideal for troubleshooting as well. You get to see what are the other components that are.
Can you imagine how you start freaking out and you actually in this big log cannot find something? Why still not? I don't understand why it's not working. That's interesting.
But
And
I mean,
it's good that you own your own system, because I know you work on like for the end user. But if you, for example, as a consultant, you're coming to the place where lots of other consultants are already started building, and doing things their own way. What I found in this system, like I work currently with a client, and they had previously people working in the system, like building business rules, which are actually one business rule is actually completely opposite to another business rule, and on top of JavaScript. So yeah, it's just that basically we don't quite own the system itself. We don't know what's in there. We're scared every time something. We're just like, why it's not working? I have no idea. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I think if you in that scenario, it'd be really hard.
In the ideal world, when you start building things from scratch, or you have at least control, and it's your internal system, I think you have more power than in the consultants. You just come in, someone already built something, you just have to support it. And
Yep.
all right, guys, this is a very interesting conversation. I think
Sorry.
we should continue. We should continue at some point.
Actually, I do want a curiosity for both of you guys, because you're coming from like one going towards no pro code, low code and pro code. So like for each of you, like in that direction, so what are your next things that you want to tackle? So I mean, because that's always interesting for me, because what's the next thing? So say Salman, like what's the next pro code thing that you might want to tackle? Or
definitely would be a plugin. So I just wanted to check. I've done some basic plugin, but I wanted to go a little bit more further, deeper, and see what's in it. So yeah, I'm always interested in that area.
Salman, why not PCF? Take control.
Let's do advanced.
PCF.
Why not? Yes.
Yeah, why not? You should
why
do
not?
it.
That's a good.
You should do it. It's still so much fun.
Yeah, for me, I want to explore more about the AI builder and
Nice.
different tools, and I just building my pet project, for my personal like accounting, not accounting, like maybe like expense logging. So I just scan, uploads my bank statements, and came up with these transactions, and it just into my CDS.
I actually have a similar requirement in my email with all those invoices as well. Maybe I should come to you and say, how did you do it?
Yeah, and also there's a receipt scanning, right? So whenever I purchase something, I just scan the receipt with the Canvas app, and it goes into my CDS. And so that way I can just keep track of all these expenses and budgeting and all this stuff.
Nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
so that's my next one.
Okay.
Cool.
What? Are we finishing?
Yeah,
Or we're
that's
keeping?
Is that
Okay.
all?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Linn and Salman, for coming and talking to us. But it was very interesting. I
you.
also just nodding all the time, like it's really cool. Thanks a lot for sharing your stories with us, and good luck with your expense app, and good luck to you with your plugins. You just come and ask
Hopefully, yes.
with or PCF controls of whatever you choose. Maybe Azure functions like me.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Thanks.
And thanks for
Thank you so
joining
much,
us.
guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Very
everyone.
great.
Great
Yeah.
time.
Thank you for
Have a
arranging, and
great
thanks for
week.
everything.
Cool.
Bye.
Guys.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.